Welcome to the State of Nature 2024 talk series. This series of talks is one of the ways we are sharing the information contained in State of Nature 2024. This talk is about terrestrial mammals as well as amphibians and reptiles, and will cover more information on the state of these species, the pressures affecting these species, and what we can all do to help reduce these pressures. There are 7 small mammal species in Guernsey and Herm. One is endemic to Guernsey. These consist of the wood mouse, the greater white-toothed shrew, the West European hedgehog, the Guernsey vole, the house mouse, the European rabbit, and the brown rat. The largest of our small mammals are the hedgehog and the rabbit. Both these species are introduced to Guernsey, with the hedgehog likely brought in sometime in the 19th century. The greater white-toothed shrew is only found in Guernsey and Herm, and also Alderney. It's recently been found in mainland Britain for the first time. Mammals are an important part of the food chain, as they are preyed upon by many of our raptor species. Survival of our barn owl populations is particularly linked with voles, which are their main prey source. And if it's a poor year for voles, then barn owls will also be affected. Guernsey has a subspecies of the common vole, which is endemic to Guernsey, and this means that it's only found in Guernsey. As such, it's classed as a priority species by the states of Guernsey. Species have been prioritised depending on whether they are vulnerable due to a small population or limited distribution, whether they are species of international, national and local importance. There's also another subspecies of common vole found in the British Isles up in Orkney, and this is named the Orkney vole. A 2018 study discovered that Guernsey voles are bigger than their mainland European counterparts. This is due to island gigantism, where animals that are isolated on islands grow bigger due to differing selection pressures such as lack of predators. The study also found out that Herm shrews are bigger in body size and weight than Guernsey and UK shrews. This could be due to several reasons, but may again be due to lack of predators, so the shrews can grow bigger without any cost to their survival. Finally, this study also found that wood mice are bigger in Guernsey and Herm and have changes in their fur colour. They are found to have a vivid brown patch on their chest, which is much brighter compared to UK populations. This could be consistent with another species of mouse, the yellow-necked mouse, which is not found in Guernsey and Herm, but genetic analysis of Channel Islands mice groups them with wood mice. An additional 2018 study looked at estimating population sizes of some of our small mammals. This is the only island-wide mammal survey undertaken so far, with no repeat surveys completed as yet. Population estimates totaled 150,510 voles, 206,829 wood mice, and 27,295 shrews. This study also suggested that small mammals may be struggling in Guernsey and Herm, as populations have reduced densities compared to the UK, but this theory is yet to be confirmed. As our raptors rely on mammals as prey species, reduced small mammal densities would affect these populations as well. The bailiwick bat survey records the presence and absence of some small terrestrial mammals through acoustic monitoring. Despite all these studies and surveys, there is no information available yet to estimate population health or trends. More research is needed to ascertain the current status of our small mammals. There is a monitoring plan being drafted for the Guernsey vole, which is likely to recommend periodic island-wide surveying. Other small mammals, a suggested approach would be to conduct annual surveys to monitor presence and absence, and then more intensive population counts every 5 years. Our knowledge of the bat species present in Guernsey and Herm has increased significantly. In recent years, the launch of the bailiwick bat survey has seen the confirmation of 12 species present in Guernsey and Herm. Bats are protected in the island by Eurobats, an international treaty set up under the Bond Convention. This places an obligation on members to protect bats through monitoring, legislation, education, conservation measures, and international cooperation. The UK extended their agreement to the bailiwick of Guernsey with effect from June 1999. So we have a timeline here of bat sightings recorded since 1908. In 1908, the pipistrelle and long-eared bats were reported as very common. The greater horseshoe bat was also recorded, and this was not uncommon. In 1989, when the Société's bat section was formed, 2 resident species were officially thought to occur, the common pipistrelle and the grey long-eared bat. Over the next 10 years, Nethusius pipistrelle, brown long-eared bat and greater horseshoe bat all confirmed. In 2003, the Coul's pipistrelle bat was confirmed, and this species was confirmed breeding in 2018. Natterer's bats were also found to be widespread, and the single greater horseshoe bat was trapped in 2018. In 2021, thanks to the introduction of the bailiwick bat survey, species included the lesser horseshoe bat, the brant/whiskered bat, the serratin bat, the common noctule, and the lesser noctule were all confirmed as present. This gives us a species list of serratin, brant/whiskered, natterers, the lesser noctule or the Leisler's bat, the noctule, Coul's, Nethusius and common pipistrelle, brown and grey long-eareds, and greater and lesser horseshoes. Acoustic recordings collected from the bailiwick bat survey confirmed that either whiskered or brant bats were present on island, but we were unable to ascertain which species were present from just these recordings. It was necessary to have a bat in the hand to enable a review of the distinguishing features between these 2 species. In August this year, a whiskered bat was captured by experts from Sanguin Island Conservation, conducting advanced licensed bat survey techniques in Guernsey. This was at a site which was known to have good numbers of acoustic call files. This is the first in-hand record for the Channel Islands and finally confirms that it is whiskered bat present on island. Our 3 most common bats are the common pipistrelle, the grey long-eared and the natterer's bat. Common pipistrelle, which is at the top here, accounts for over 95% of bats recorded during the survey in 2021, and it was recorded at 99% of sites in 2023. Greater long-eareds, which is the picture on the left, were recorded at 77% of sites in 2023. They are listed as endangered on the Great Britain Red List and least concern on the Normandy and Brittany Red Lists. Natterers, which is the other picture, these were recorded at 59% of sites surveyed in 2023, and they're listed as near threatened on the Brittany Red List and least concern on the Normandy Red List. Bailiwick Bat Survey has provided information on bat activity in spring, summer and autumn, but the survey does not cover the winter period. Surveys have been conducted outside of the Bailiwick Bat Survey to try and understand where bat species are roosting over winter, as winter roosts are poorly known for most species. Surveys of some of our underground tunnels have recorded brown long-eareds, natterers, whiskered and greater horseshoes. These species are rare in the main bat survey, show a strong preference for overwintering in the tunnels. They're also known to like underground structures. Knowing where our bats are roosting means we can protect these areas and prevent disturbance. Grey long-eared bats, common pipistrelles, and Coul's and Nethusius pipistrelles were under-recorded in these winter surveys, which fits in with prior knowledge of each species' ecology and their preference for winter roosts, usually in buildings. Further research will provide more evidence on where species hibernate in winter and whether they migrate to Guernsey or leave the island to overwinter. Robust legislation is needed to ensure the long-term survival of our bat roosts. Repeated disturbance will cause many species to abandon the roost. Above-ground roosts for some species include houses, such as in lofts and attics. There's some anecdotal evidence that roosts have been lost. Animal Welfare Ordinance 2012 requires that bats and their roosts are protected, with reckless or deliberate acts that cause disturbance, damage or killing being an offence. The law requires that reasonable precautions are taken to prevent disturbance, which is likely to impact roosts, but it's not routine practice for surveys to be carried out before demolition or structural works, nor is it for the planning department to require them. Some other species will also roost in trees, and the presence of standing, mature and dead trees will provide habitat for these tree dwellers. Following the results of the Bailiwick Bat Survey, we know what species are present on island. There's a clear need to evaluate the Habitat Association of bats to understand more about their habitat preferences their roosting areas, and their behaviour. This will enable better management and protection to help conserve bat species within the bailiwick. This next section looks at amphibians and reptiles. There are two species of amphibian found in Guernsey and Herm, the smooth newt and the common frog. Common frogs are the only species of frog found in the two islands. It's thought that agile frogs used to be found in Guernsey, but there's only a few records from the 60s and 70s, and it would now be considered locally extinct. Common frogs vary in colour, and they can be green, brown, yellow, or red. They have smooth skin, a dark mask behind the eye, and long back legs. They reproduce by laying spawn in large clumps. Smooth newts are the only species in Guernsey and Herm, whereas the palmate newt is the only species found in Alderney. Smooth newts are grey-brown with an orange belly with black spots. They will lay their eggs individually on the leaves of aquatic plants. And males will have a wavy crest along their back during the breeding season. We also have two species of reptile present. These are the slow worm and the western green lizard. Slow worms are a legless lizard. This means they can shed their tails and blink their eyelids. They have smooth golden and grey skin. The males are sometimes paler and they have blue spots, while females are larger with a dark stripe down their back. Western green lizards have a self-sustaining population in the wild in a single limited location on the south-east coast of Guernsey. They are usually green with a white or pale yellow underside, and the males will have blue throats during the breeding season. Juveniles tend to be brown with pale stripes. Amphibians and reptiles are collectively known as herptiles, and they're found in habitats like ponds, wet areas, grasslands, woodlands, scrub, gardens, and hedgerows. These species will feed on aquatic and terrestrial invertebrates, and they also hibernate over the winter months. In terms of the Great Britain Red List, most of these species are classed as least concern, but it's thought that locally the slow worm is in long-term decline. There's a lack of data on our amphibians and reptiles in Guernsey and Herm, and further work is needed to better understand their population and distribution. The National Amphibian and Reptile Recording Scheme has been conducted in Guernsey from 2012 to 2017. This scheme involves sampling suitable habitat in a square kilometre in Guernsey by visiting 3 times and recording the presence or absence of local herptile species. A long-running, consistent amphibian and reptile survey would provide reliable data which could be used to estimate population trends. This should be tailored to Guernsey and Herm, as the requirement of sampling habitat per square kilometre, as seen in the national scheme, is not really appropriate for small islands. Having more data will increase our knowledge and to help inform us as to whether conservation measures are needed. While knowing what species and habitats are present on island is crucial for conservation, it's important to know the causes and rate of change to the natural environment. We're then able to manage and mitigate these negative impacts. These changes can occur naturally, but are usually due to human activities. Data Nature 2024 identifies the primary threats to our habitats and species, and also notes the combined effect of these multiple threats and the subsequent impact on our natural environment. By increasing our understanding of these threats or pressures facing our natural environment, as well as improving understanding about species and habitats, we can introduce targeted conservation measures to try and address the imbalance brought about by negative human impacts. Threats to terrestrial mammals include habitat loss, particularly of roosts and fragmentation, use of pesticides, disturbance, light pollution, invasive species, and intensive land management. Threats to amphibians and reptiles are similar, including habitat loss and degradation, pesticide use, invasive species, disease, and increased environmental temperatures due to climate change. We'll now have a look at some of these threats in more detail. Invasive species are plants or animals which have been introduced to an area by humans. They are then able to thrive to the detriment of local species, the economy, and public health. Invasives are a considerable threat to biodiversity and can cause major problems on islands. Humans will spread invasive non-native species through the global movement of goods and people all over the world, resulting in the intentional and unintentional introduction of many species, which can have wide-ranging consequences. Invasive non-native species may outcompete local species, predate natives, bring in disease, hybridize with natives, cause habitat alteration and degradation, or negatively alter the balance of ecosystems. Many invasive species can reproduce rapidly, and/or they are generalists, which is the key to their quick spread and establishment. Brown rats are an example of an invasive non-native mammal. A recent study found rats have been introduced to 78% of islands where they are contributing to biodiversity declines. They are especially detrimental to populations of seabirds as they eat their eggs and chicks, causing declines in their populations. New Zealand pygmy-weed, which is pictured here, is an invasive freshwater plant. It will grow below the surface of the water or around the edges of ponds. It can completely cover the surface of ponds, forming a dense mat. This will then shade out other plants and also prevent sunlight from reaching underwater plants. They are then no longer able to photosynthesize, so oxygen is not produced, which leads to declines in aquatic invertebrates and amphibians. The earliest record of this plant in Guernsey is from 1987. Development is a major factor in the loss of habitats for wildlife. Being an island means that lack of land availability creates a tension between development and providing space for nature. There's a potential for further declines in valuable habitat if development on the green spaces in Guernsey continues without thorough consideration of biodiversity impacts. Many new buildings have less space available within and between external features for species such as bats to utilise. Many species of bats roost in buildings, so this reduces the available habitat. This graphic on the screen shows just quite how many places there are in buildings for bats to roost, and some species will only need a tiny hole in order to be able to gain access. Bats may roost in built structures, but they will also forage in fields and along hedgerows, so the loss of suitable roosting spaces within urban areas, as well as natural habitats, has a knock-on effect. The use of brownfield sites, such as old hotels or former industrial areas, for development in Guernsey would have a lower impact on biodiversity than development on more natural areas or greenfield sites, which have a higher ecological value. This is subject to the appropriate surveys and mitigation strategies being carried out, as these areas can still be good habitat for bats. Habitats are becoming increasingly fragmented. This reduces habitat connectivity and can prevent species from travelling between their feeding, nesting, and breeding sites. It could also cause genetic isolation of species. This means that populations are unable to meet, breed, and exchange genes, reducing the robustness of the population. Signs of possible inbreeding have been found in the Guernsey vole population. It is widely acknowledged in the UK that the post-war demand for self-sufficient food production has reduced the amount of biodiverse natural habitats. This is due to the intensification of farming methods and the loss of ecologically important farmland habitat, such as hedgerows. The same has happened in Guernsey, although on a smaller scale, causing large amounts of land to become less suitable for wildlife. Intensive land management has driven habitat change and caused species declines. Traditionally, arable land in Guernsey supported a wide diversity of annual flowers, which would in turn support healthy populations of insects and the species that feed on them, such as bats. Intensive management has led to improved grassland becoming the dominant habitat type, and also increases in arable land and short-term lay. This is represented on the graph here, which shows that these three habitats have increased since the first habitat survey in 1999. These habitats are usually improved with fertilizers or pesticides. They are frequently cut, ploughed, grazed, or reseeded, and as such are poor for wildlife. The conversion of agricultural land to domestic curtilage has also amplified the need for intensive land management. These areas are usually heavily managed, closely mown or reseeded, and are also poor habitats for wildlife. The use of pesticides is a major factor in the decline of insects. Pesticides will not just wipe out target species, but non-target species as well. These declines in insect populations will then affect species that prey on them, such as bats and other small mammals. Toxic chemicals also impact nervous, immune, and reproductive systems. They cause hormonal imbalances and disrupt natural behaviours. Pesticide runoff into aquatic environments also impacts our amphibians. Glyphosate has been discovered in our streams and reservoirs, posing a threat to the natural environment. It's treated by Guernsey Water to ensure compliance with drinking water standards, but this doesn't necessarily negate the risk to our habitats and species. Glyphosate impacts the early stages of amphibian development, reducing survival rates and ultimately impacting population numbers. Light pollution is directly caused by humans and is becoming increasingly detrimental to wildlife in recent years. Examples of light pollution include streetlights, security lighting on buildings, and lamps which are used to illuminate buildings. Even leaving your curtains open after dark with the lights on inside will create light pollution. While some lights are necessary, the theme of lighting up landmarks and homes at night is having adverse impacts on wildlife. The impact of light pollution in Guernsey is currently considered to be relatively low. If we take a look at the map on the screen, we can see that light pollution is mainly concentrated in St. Peter Port and also a bit at the airport. So the impacts are relatively low because many of our street lights have remained old-fashioned, warmer coloured lights rather than being upgraded to new LED lighting. Light pollution affects both diurnal and nocturnal animals. It affects the natural rhythms of species by blurring the boundaries between day and night. So this pressure particularly affects our bat species. For example, bats will leave their roost to forage at night, and artificial lighting causes them to leave their roosts much later, reducing the amount of time available for hunting. Or it may even prevent them from leaving their roosts altogether and cause them to starve. Light may also act as a physical barrier, such as on roads, preventing species from crossing and reducing the amount of habitat available. A recent study on bats in Guernsey found that natterers and brown long-eared bats will avoid areas with high levels of artificial light at night. Most light pollution regulations centre around lights being either a necessity or a nuisance to humans rather than wildlife. Legislation or policies to control the use of light on private developments or commercial areas will help to benefit wildlife. Individuals, businesses and government can all play a part, whether it's big or small, in doing their bit to help our local wildlife. In this section, we will look at some of the actions you can take to reduce your impact on the natural environment and help us enhance native biodiversity in Guernsey and Herm. There are many great organisations who are already supporting the natural environment in the work that they do, from biological data collection to nature education events. Corporate support is also a valuable way to help these local charities in their work. Here are some other ways that you can help. Islanders can contribute to addressing gaps in our knowledge and help to protect our natural environment by recording sightings of local wildlife. Apps such as iRecord or iNaturalist allow you to submit sightings in the field. These apps then link in with the Guernsey Biological Records Centre, allowing all the data to be accessed from one central location. Submission of sightings can include native or invasive non-native species, and at a minimum need only include the location, the date, and the number seen. This is important to help understand abundance and distribution of species across Guernsey and Herm. Attaching photos also allows for the data to be verified by experts. There are many organisations who do great work on the island, such as the Société and the National Trust, to name but a few. Many more are listed in our report alongside citizen science projects you can get involved in. Citizen science is a really great way to engage the public and collect large amounts of useful data. It's really important to have data as you can't manage what you don't measure. It's hoped that an amphibian and reptile citizen science project will be set up in the future, and this will help to boost our knowledge of local reptile species. Domestic gardens and parks have considerable potential as habitat for wildlife, if they are managed sympathetically. These spaces make up around 1/3 of Guernsey's area. In the report, there is a list of actions that can be taken to help garden for wildlife. They include following the guidance available on sustainable cutting of roadside hedges, trimming inside hedges much more infrequently, planting native tree and hedge plants, using wildlife-friendly outdoor lighting, creating wet areas and ponds, and allowing areas of your lawn to grow long. Full State of Nature 2024 report is available on our website or via this QR code. State of Nature 2024 summary report is also available here as well. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the Guernsey Community Foundation, States of Guernsey, and the Social Investment Fund. Please follow us on social media if you don't already. We are on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn, and you can check out our website. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us office@naturecommission.gg. Thank you for listening.